Some 80s classic sounds for you. Matthew Wilder, Break My Stride, a very, very experienced and an illustrious person in studio during the course of the next hour.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Manifold are his exploits. Maneck Davar is in studio. He is chairman of the Kalagoda Association, which conducts the annual Kalagoda Arts Festival with over 4 to 5 lakh visitors every year. He's also managing trustee of the Make-A-Wish Foundation India. And of course, it is no secret that he's also chairman of Spenta Multimedia. He's going to be with me through the course of the hour, and there's so much to talk about. Wonderful to see you, Maneck. How are you?
I'm great, Rishi. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm going to start with a rewind, take you 4 decades ago, when you started your journalistic career as assistant editor of the Blitz under the legendary Rusi Karanjia. You were what, 19 or 20? Talk about those days.
Well, I was about 20 years old, I think, just crossed 20, and I met Rusi Karanjia in a place called Chikmagalur, where I had gone to cover the elections of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. And he was an iconic journalist. George Fernandez then was leading the campaign on part of the Janata. But more than the crowd which George was drawing, there was a whole group of people who were following Rusi as he went around the marketplace in Chikmagalur. And he asked me to come back to Mumbai and meet him. And when I met him, he said, I want to bring out a 4-page supplement on Mumbai, and would I edit it? And I said I would think about it. I went out and I came back a few days later and I said, yes, I would do it. And so started my career in journalism. I was freelancing before. I freelanced for a lot of magazines and newspapers, but that was my first job. And it was an absolute privilege to work with him.
Your learnings from working with a man like that, something that has stood the test of time. I'm sure you carry those learnings with you even to date.
Well, the first article which I wrote, I remember I went to him, and he was the quintessential editor. He had this blue pencil with him. And Rusi had also had his, an internship in Fleet Street during the World War, a little before the World War. So he took my article, he started correcting it, he cancelled the first line, wrote something, cancelled the second line, wrote something, then took the entire article, crumpled it into a ball, threw it at me and said, you think you can write? I was obviously at that age, I was a little shocked, and whatever self-confidence I had disappeared in that moment. But then I went out, I straightened my copy, and I took out old issues of Blitz and I started reading, and I rewrote the article and I went back. And then started it was very tough, and he was a very tough editor. So I worked on it for about a month, and then I went to him and I said, look, I've worked with you, but I don't think I can carry on with your moods and with your anger. And he immediately quietened, he immediately calmed down, and he said he was purposely being tough on me. And from that day onwards, he allowed me a lot of leeway. Within the month, he allowed me a lot of leeway. And there are a lot of lessons he taught me. He taught me humility. He taught me how to say sorry. But he was also very generous as a person. And 6 months later, when I had to leave and join my friend Minaz Merchant, who was starting Gentleman magazine, he gave me a letter which I just read this morning. And in that he mentioned he wanted me to stay on, but he wished me well. And he saw in me the makings of a great journalist, even the future editor of that paper. And that was his generosity more than, my talent. So I actually salute him.
Wonderful. More Maneck Davar after this song. It's Share the Shoop Shoop song. Share the Shoop Shoop song. Maneck Davar, somebody who's cut his teeth in journalism, today is a publisher, a philanthropist par excellence. Also the man who runs the 99-year-old Bairamji Gigi Boy Home for Children, whose 125 residents are abandoned, orphaned, and he serves on the board of trustees of Apne Aap Women's Collective. And of course, his contribution to the Kalagoda Arts Festival, that's something that everybody knows. I'm in conversation with him.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
The annual Kalagoda Arts Festival, such sterling contribution from people like Brinda Miller, yourself. Talk about the association itself and the Arts Festival and where you visualized it a few years ago and how it's turned out to be.
Well, the Kalagoda Association was formed by a group of people who were really concerned about the environment, and especially of the art heritage district, which was the Kalagoda. One of the founders was a former director of Tata Sons, Shahrukh Sabawala. He was a brother of the artist Jahangir Sabawala. And their grandfather was Sir Kawasji Jahangir. And Kawasji Jahangir had donated monies to build the Elphinstone College, the Institute of Science. And Sabawala always felt when he passed by Elphinstone College that it was a sort of an insult to his grandfather, the way it was maintained. So he formed the Kalagoda Association. My association with KGA started because I was an Elphinstonian and I made a small contribution towards the repairs and especially the facade of the college. And I was invited to come and serve on the committee of the association. The Kalagoda Association had two aims. One, of course, was the preservation of the art district, and the second was to have festivals so that common people had an exposure to the arts and to culture. And thus began the Kalagoda Arts Festival in a very small way, I believe over a weekend. And now I think it's the 17th year this year, next year that would be, that the festival is on. Today it has become a huge event over 9 days. I think more than about 20-30 venues, 14-15 different disciplines in which we have it. And the whole thing about the Kalagoda festival is that it is completely free for all to come and enjoy. It has become a fixture on the calendar. And as you rightly said, it's not just my contribution, it's more the contribution of our festival director Brinda Miller and the various curators who come together and put together a whole calendar of events year after year after year with new things happening all the time. My role basically is more of a facilitator. I really don't want to go very deep into what it takes to put the festival together as far as the authorities are concerned. Last year, you know that we were in court for almost 9 months as a local resident had gone to court, and we finally got the permission from the Bombay High Court to go ahead with the festival. But every year before the festival, we tell ourselves, what are we doing this for? And after 9 days, when we see the thousands of people who come, and from all walks of life, and children, and old people, they don't get an exposure to culture. I've seen old Parsi ladies who come to Hanuman Circle and are watching plays in Marathi and Hindi and enjoying the whole process. The ambience, the Asiatic Library steps on the last 2 days, and then it is worth it. Of course, the whole idea is now to turn Kalagoda into a tourist hub, and we are working on that with the Maharashtra state government, and hopefully we should be able to do it as an all-round, all-year-round, except of course for the monsoons, hub for entertainment and culture.
Messages in back with Maneck Davar, my guest of the day. Johnny Hayes Jazz with their synth pop, it's Shattered Dreams. Maneck Davar is my guest of the day, the Honorary Secretary of the 10th World Zoroastrian Congress, also on the organizing committee of the Udwada Utsav. And for those of you who tuned in late, just a couple of minutes ago, I mentioned chairman of the Kalagoda Association, which conducts the annual Kalagoda Arts Festival. More conversation.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
The Kalagoda Association also restores heritage buildings, and I want you to talk about buildings you've restored, in particular the Humarji Wadia Clock Tower, which I think is on Bazar Gate Street.
As I said, there were two aims of the Kalagoda Association. One, of course, the festival which we spoke about. The other one is the restoration of old heritage buildings, especially in the Art Heritage District. And of course, we have extended it to the fountain, the old fort area. We are big supporters of the museum, the Chhatrapati Shivaji Vastu Sangrahalaya. We've also supported the David Sassoon Library, the Bombay Natural History Society. Apart from, there is an amphitheater on the Rampart Row, which of course we can't use, sadly, because of noise pollution restrictions, silent zone restrictions. Now we are restoring a Pyao, which is outside the Hanuman Circle Gardens, and the Hormaji Bamanji Wadia Clock Tower, which is in Bazar Gate Street, which is in a very dilapidated condition. We have conservation architect Vikas Dilawari working with us on the clock tower, and the Urban Development Research Institute working with us on the Pyao. And what we are doing is that from the surplus which we have from the festival, we are spending money on restoring these monuments. And we are also committed to aid the restoration of the synagogue, which is in Rampart Row. And we are open to more Pyaos, and we are working very closely with the municipal corporation on this.
It must warm the cockles of your heart that when you started Spenta Multimedia, you had one room with 4 staff, and today what is it, 36, 37 custom publishing titles, 7 newsstand magazines? Amazing.
Well, thank you. Yes, it is. But most of the credit goes to the people who worked with me. Out of the 4 people who were in the room with me as when we began 20 years ago, 2 of them are still my very valued colleagues, and more have joined the organization. Also, what is of great satisfaction is that the contracts which we have had have continued with us for a very long period of time. I guess one of the reasons is that, Spenta comes from the Avestan religion, our religion, and it means the fount of everything which is good. Our religion is dual, good versus evil. And I guess what we try to do in Spenta is we try to live up to our name in seeing that we follow best business practices. I guess that is the reason why we have been quietly successful in our field.
It's Eagle Eye Cherry with assistant Nene Cherry, long way around. More Maneck Davar up ahead. Eagle Eye Cherry, Nene Cherry, long way around. Maneck Davar is in studio, a man who started his career almost 40 years ago under Rusi Karanjia, the Blitz, at the tender age of 19 or 20. And look at what he's built up. Spenta Multimedia today has titles including Jetwings International, Hair, Domus, The Smart Manager, and a whole lot more. More conversation with him on the social side.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
It is of particular interest to me that you're managing trustee of Make-A-Wish Foundation. You're also chairman and trustee of the Society for the Protection of Children in Western India, which runs the almost 100-year-old Bairamji Jijiboy Home for Children. So, the activities that you partake in or the driving force behind helping children with these organizations?
Children have always been very close to me because they're the most vulnerable parts of our society. They're right down there, and I've been very close to wanting to do a lot for children. Make-A-Wish Foundation is very close to me. I just read something about them in a newspaper, and I just decided to go ahead and help. And we did a show at the Turf Club. We raised some funds for the organization, and I've been associated with that since then. Make-A-Wish is an affiliate of the International Make-A-Wish Foundation. There are 39 affiliates. We are one of them. But India fulfills about 40% of the total wishes. The total wishes which are fulfilled are 11,000 odd, out of which India fulfills 5,000 wishes. And we do it on an absolute shoestring budget. The whole concept of Make-A-Wish is that we reach out to children with life-threatening illnesses and give them that one moment of happiness. And this moment of happiness sometimes has a very cathartic effect on the child and the child's treatment. There was a story of this boy who was, I think, KM hospital, and his wish was to meet Shah Rukh Khan. He was so weak that the doctor said that he couldn't move out of the hospital. Shah Rukh would have to come and meet him. And in the middle of the night, away from the public glare, Shah Rukh did come meet him. The next thing you knew, the boy was on the road to recovery.
Wow.
He recovered, and I have met him since. You couldn't believe that he had any ailment. Then he wanted to see a shooting. He went for the film shooting and he stayed on. And then Shah Rukh said, he would drop him home. But that is just one of the stories. It's an amazing organization. And that organization, again, is built on our volunteers. I've always believed in any sort of an NGO or social organization that it is an inverted triangle. In the case of Make-A-Wish, it is our volunteers who are on the top. Below that come the staff, and forming the apex at the bottom are the trustees. We have probably fulfilled more than 25,000 wishes, but I don't think I have the empathy in me to relate to a child who is suffering. It is the volunteer who does that. So my role in that sense, right, is very minuscule. It's nothing compared to the lady who has the heart to go and reach out to these children. I'm a firm believer of that. So that is as far as Make-A-Wish Foundation is concerned.
I'm gonna hold on to that thought and come back and talk about the Bairamji Jijiboy Home for Children up ahead. You have any comments on this interview? It's one space, your comment and name to 53650 on SMS. On Twitter as well as Facebook, HRISHIKAY, tweet out or post out. Facebook.com/radio1.mum. You can like the page, post in the timeline, inbox, and we'll immediately get back to you, read out the message on air. Messages and back with Maneck Davar. Terence Trent Darby wishing well. Maneck Davar is in studio. He's managing trustee of Make-A-Wish Foundation, honorary secretary of the 10th World Zoroastrian Congress, also on the organizing committee of Udvada Utsav, and his work at the Kala Ghoda Association, which conducts the annual Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, is well spoken about. More conversation.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
I interrupted you when you were about to begin talking about the Bairamji Jijiboy Home for Children, which is really close to your heart. It's a almost 100-year institution.
I was introduced to it by a friend of mine, and I joined it as an honorary secretary the first year. I became chairman the subsequent year, and I saw what it was and what needed to be done. I'm really quite proud of what has been achieved, not only by me, but by a group of my committee members, including Roshni Ramanya, who is now the vice president, who was the honorary secretary, and another gentleman called Ratan Sri Thakkar. Very, very dedicated team. The children, when I first went there and I just saw the way that they were, I looked at the meals, for example. All that they were getting were moong dal and rice, and that was the staple diet. Suddenly realized we had only one cook for 125 children. We increased the number of cooks. We increased the food that we were giving him, the quality of food. Today I'm proud to say that we are the only home within the framework of the child welfare, the child welfare department of the government of Maharashtra, which sends its children to a private school. We send our children not to a municipal school, but try to give them a better education in a private school, and more important, ensure that they interact with children from all classes and sections of society. This has been this has really been a great experience for me. And the school also is run with the help and support of the neighborhood. The amount of help that we receive, both material and in terms of cash, especially for the education. Just to give you an example, when I took over, our expenses of running the school were 11 lakhs of rupees a year. We had a revenue of 8 lakhs, so every year there was a deficit. Now, not only are we able to meet an expenditure of 42 lakhs of rupees a year, but we have a substantial amount which we have saved for the future. And we have done this without any special fundraising. So I also have a belief that if you are doing something good, money will find its way to you. And the most important thing is that people who visit our school, the first impression they have is that the children are very happy. The children, your first thing would be like it's something out of Dickens or Bleak House. But you must come and visit and you must see the children. And it's a great experience.
Let's do a rewind to when you were a rookie reporter and breaking all those exposés, scandals, investigative journalism that you indulged in. On the CBI director, a bank chairman, along with your stories on the Punjab insurgency. This was during the Express years.
I think the best work that I could do, and I did, was when I was with a newspaper called The Daily, which Rusi Karanja had started. I had left him, then I came back, and we started The Daily newspaper. And that was so offbeat. It was the first successful tabloid morning newspaper that the country has ever seen. Unfortunately, it never got the recognition it deserved. And we had a bulldog as a symbol, and we were called the bulldog of a newspaper. And the things we did out there, we really defined journalism. Now, my exposés basically started there. And we did a lot of stories on the FSI frauds in those days, which involved Yusuf Patel, who was, along with Haji Mastan, a known person in the underworld then. And a lot of stories that we did on the state of the city. And The Daily, we started it in 1981. So we were older than the Telegraph. And we were the first newspaper which compartmentalized news, in the sense that we had city, we had nation, we had world. Before that, news was not compartmentalized. It was all over the paper. And we started that practice. We used to support medical causes. We used to support kidney donations. And I still remember the late Rajni Patel would tell me that every time there was a need, he would personally give me his own contribution. We organized shows by military bands, police bands at our various cooperage and the Hanging Gardens. And we were really rocking as a newspaper. So much so that we even took in people from, who had lost their way in Mumbai, runaways and all, kept them in the office, fed them till they got money from their homes, and in some cases bought them railway tickets and sent them back. And we did that, as a group of journalists. And all this was due to a man called Rusi Karanja, who gave us the freedom and the leeway to do whatever we wanted. So my first groundings were with The Daily. Then, of course, I moved on. I started a legal magazine with my friend Mahesh Jethmalani. And that was doing reasonably well. It was the first legal magazine written from the perspective of an informed layman rather than a lawyer. So it was not a dry legal journal. And the surprising part of it was that when we closed it down, and Senior Ram Jethmalani, when he went to Harvard, one of the Harvard professors came up to him and said, "Are you the same Jethmalani from the law magazine in India?"
Oh, wow.
Because one of his students, Darius Khambata, who was our former Advocate General of Maharashtra, had sent him a subscription. So he knew about the law magazine. And then, as it was not doing too well, and I had still had my keen journalistic instincts, I did get involved in doing some exposés. And as you said, one of them was the CBI chief, where I went as a buyer of a raw material, and his son was an agent, was not supposedly, but was an agent. And then there was the takeover of L&T by Reliance through Bank of Baroda, Bob Fiscal, and I did a story on the chairman whose son ran a factory in Silvassa which converted polyester, and so on and so forth. But I think one fact I must admit, and I must say, and I don't mean that as a complaint whatsoever, is that I did all this without ever being on the staff of the Indian Express. I didn't even have a card which said Indian Express.
Wow.
And somewhere in all this, they forgot that, I needed to be compensated for this work. So I didn't even get...
you didn't even get anything.
No, I didn't. But it was not important to me because I was part of a core group which was looking into this. And as I said, it's not a complaint. It's just that I feel so good about it. I was part of a large family, and family doesn't need to be compensated.
It's another way of looking at it. A last leg of conversation with Maneck Davar up ahead. Don't go anywhere. Tom Jones, give a little love. Put your hands together for Maneck Davar, who's my guest of the day. A fantastic career spanning journalism, entrepreneurship, and of course now managing trustee of Make a Wish, chairman and trustee of the Society for the Protection of Children in Western India, secretary of the 10th World Zoroastrian Congress, also on the organizing committee of the Udvada Utsav, amongst his many, many exploits.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
So, you're a Neil Diamond fan, but most importantly, there's a wonderful nugget that I want you to share with us about your children and their love for Neil Diamond.
We have a daughter who's about 3.5 years old, who's quite a music buff. And her favorite is watching Nutcracker Suite on YouTube. And she manages to navigate all this, and she's been doing that for quite some time. And both my daughter Ava and my younger son Darius, they're great fans of music. And they've also been listening to their grandfather's CD on Neil Diamond. So Neil Diamond was also their personal favorite. And our wife thought we should give us a little surprise. And the surprise was that we ended up taking Ava with us to a Neil Diamond concert in Paris. And Ava did bring down the age levels out there substantially. But it was a good experience, a rocking experience. And I must say that for a 3.5-year-old, she has a great attention span for music.
And Neil Diamond actually got on stage in that song and he talked to Parisians. So what did he say?
Well, he talked to Parisians and said, it's great to be back in Paris, as they all say. But he said, I'm a little embarrassed to say that the last time was 30 years ago.
Lovely, lovely. So future plans, you look back at your life, there's so much that you've done. What is there still left to be achieved? What are your goals in the immediate future?
Well, look, I've taken life as it comes. I have really not set out a roadmap for my life or whatever I've done. Just now I think I'm trying to give a little back to my community. I did that during the organization of the 10th World Zoroastrian Congress. I am a pretty proud Parsi, and I thought that the Congress afforded an opportunity to get the community back into the limelight. This was the first time that a head of state, the President of India, came to a Congress. And it was a proud moment for all of us. And we had a 4-day event which was at the NSCI, plus a whole day at the race course. And our sponsors for the event, and person who gave a lot of time and effort, was of course Dr. Cyrus Poonawalla of the Serum Institute of India. And our vice chairman was Nader Godrej of the Godrej Industries Group. And I was the honorary secretary organizing everything. So it was a great experience for me. And now we have elections to the BPP, which is the premier institution of the community. Not only for Parsis in Mumbai, but for Parsis all over the world. And I hope to make a change in the way the BPP has been managed for the past 7 years. I hope to do something for my community if I'm given a chance. That's what I'm going to be busy with for the next 3 weeks. And if I get through, then my next 5 or 7 years is really taken care of. But I'm not going to slacken on all my other activities. Nothing's going to suffer. And I have a wonderful bunch of people where I work, who I work with. Incidentally, everyone in my organization or wherever I am, they work with me. There's nobody who has ever worked for me. Sometimes I feel that I am working for them rather than the other way around. But that's the way it is, and I'm enjoying it.
Very well put. It's been such an engaging hour in studio with you. Thank you very, very much. Are you on social networking? Are you on Facebook or Twitter, or have you survived the lure and you're away?
No, the thing is this, I'm a very private person, whether you believe it or not, and I really am a private person. But exigencies of time, I am now on Facebook and Twitter, not very active on Twitter, but I am on Facebook. And I think that's the way also to go ahead. We do also have a digital media set up in the company. And social media is, of course, a very important part. And as we go ahead, it's going to be a very important part of our lives. And also one last thing I must say is that I want to introduce systems and e-governance as far as the workings of the community organizations are concerned. So it's going to be a digital life for all of us.
Wonderful. We're going to sign off with the Neil Diamond song, America. Take care of yourself. Thank you, Maneck Davar.
Thank you so much, Rishikesh. Nice to be with you.